What up? It's your boy ClutchKickerNation here, coming back to you with more content. Alright, so quick little update. Just thought in case you are curious, my welder came in. Alright, yes, that's right. HP hooked it up. They sent me a brand new one. Everything seems to be good. I've tried it out. I kind of suck at TIGging, but we're gonna practice. We're gonna get better, and I'm just excited to have it. I got my argon bottle filled up. I got everything to go. I got some filler rod and everything, some stainless and some mild steel and some aluminum. So I'm super excited about that. You know what else is super exciting? The fact that the 1JZ was in the car. That was pretty exciting. Now it's not in the car anymore, but it was exciting. And I will say I'm a little bummed out, but doing everything by myself, I kind of scratched my paint, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. You won't see it. So, you know, hey, what can you do? But super late. I've been busy all day. I haven't filmed anything because really, there was nothing to film. All I did today was try to position the motor, see where it was gonna sit, see what I could do, find its final position, and then measure the length for the drive shaft. But I will say, I ordered the drive shaft. That's right, I called a local company down where I live. I gave them the measurements, I gave them the flange styles, everything like that. They're hooking it up, steel, 3-inch with a yoke, slip joint, like because a BMW transmission doesn't have like a standard yoke setup. If you're not familiar with it, it uses a 3-bolt flange and a guibo. I'm getting rid of the guibo. I'm getting a drive shaft shop adapter to go to a 1310 flange, and then it's gonna have a slip joint in the center of the shaft or towards transmission, wherever they place it. But it's a 3-inch steel, should be good for 500 horsepower, 4 to 500, whatever, and 8,000 RPM, whatever. They're gonna calculate it all out and figure it out for me. But it was only 400 bucks. So I'm super happy about that. I was gonna go with the Shaft Masters. They wanted $600. I was just like, and it was gonna be 3.5-inch aluminum. And honestly, I don't think 3.5-inch would fit with this setup. So 3-inch is where I really wanted to stay. So we went that route. But now, today's video. There's the poor 1J out again. It looks kind of interesting with this big motor, little baby transmission. Believe it or not, with this setup, you could probably, with a little modification, the stock shifter would work. It actually is the perfect length to put it right in the shifter hole. And the motor, or the transmission mounts, like where the mounts attached to the transmission, are right where the cross member for the factory 240 cross member are. So it may not be too difficult to fabricate a cross member. So we're gonna try to do that another day. Probably to maybe tomorrow or something. Today's video, we're pulling the transmission off. We're gonna fully install the clutch, the adapter kit, and everything so that the motor and trans can go back in permanently. Or at least hopefully permanently, because I really don't wanna have to pull it again. But I'm gonna get set up, we're gonna rip this transmission off, and we're gonna go through the adapter kit. I got all the information from Pmc Motorsports on how everything's meant to be installed and what location and where it goes and whatnot, and we're gonna get her done. Alright guys, so now that the transmission's removed and everything, we're going to basically remove all the parts and reassemble them all in the proper order, and I'll show you all that here in a second. So, give me one sec. Alright guys, so here's the diagram that I think it was Matt sent me from PMC. I'll send a picture of this so you can see it a little better. But basically, I found out what this black thing is right here. It is a crank extender, basically. So it basically is the same diameter as the crankshaft, and this is where I was questioning about with all the stuff how the flywheel was going to have enough room to stay on there. So this installs into the crank like kind of like a pilot bushing, and then it basically extends the crank so you have more room so you can put more stuff on there. Pretty much the first step is going to be install your spacer, followed by your ring gear. Now, if you're curious, this goes with the welds facing out in case you forget or whatever. So yeah, welds facing out, or if you see these raised sections, the raised sections face the transmission. So then, so spacer, then our automatic flex plate, and then once you have the flex plate, then our flywheel is going to go on. Alright, so once your flywheel's on, we're going to use these black 12.9 grade bolts with a washer, and we're going to use red Loctite. We're going to be torquing these down to 63 foot-pounds, which is the same as like ARPs or whatever, so that's what I'm going with. all the bolts and everything are installed, I'm just gonna give them a quick bump with the impact, and then I'm gonna torque them all up. Alright guys, so now we got all our bolts tightened down. They're torqued to 63 foot-pounds. So now we're gonna get our clutch, pressure plate, our disc, and everything and install that. So I'll be back here in a second. Alright, so there was just a few spots of surface rust on this flywheel from basically shipping and just sitting and whatnot. So I'm going to use a little bit of red Scotch-Brite. I'm just going to clean the surface up, and then I'm going to spray it with some parts cleaner, make sure it's clean for the clutch disc. That's going to make sure that we get all the oil and everything from our hands and whatnot all off of the surface. So next, after we torque the flywheel and everything, we're going to install our clutch disc. This is an ACT 6-puck sprung disc. You got to make sure to notice that it says flywheel side. So the spring pack, if you look at the hub of the clutch, the spring pack faces the engine. It didn't come with the clutch alignment tool, so I found one that fits in pretty decently and everything. So we're going to use that and send it. So all you're going to do is you're going to put it in there like so, and then you're going to basically set that up. And there's our clutch disc installed. So now it's time for our pressure plate. Now we're using a E46 330i 240 millimeter clutch disc, and we're using a BMW 550i 335 IS pressure plate. This is a Luke, just a factory clutch pressure plate. So that's the setup we're using. So I'm gonna clean this real quick and then we're gonna install it. All right, so I forgot about this stupid thing in the center here. It won't allow us to use our alignment tool the way it's set up. So basically, if memory serves me correctly, all this does is release the pressure onto the disc. It's meant to make installing the pressure plate easier. Anyways, I'm not sure where it is, but we had to remove the hex locker that's installed. It's a 14 millimeter. It locks the pressure plate fingers down, so there's no pressure on the disc. It makes it easier to install, but it won't work with our alignment tool. So you go ahead and pop that out. Now we can install our pressure plate. We've already cleaned the surface and made sure it's nice and clean and oil free. So we're gonna get our pressure plate bolts, and we're going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on them. Now these bolts are listed as 8.8s, and according to BMW, if you have 8.8s, it's 18 foot-pounds. If you have 10.9s, it's 25 foot-pounds. So we're going to torque these down 18 foot-pounds with a little bit of blue Loctite. Alright, now with all the bolts seated and everything like that, what we're going to do is we're going to slowly screw all these in, tighten them all up by hand with a socket wrench until they're all flush and mated against the until it's basically there's no gap. And once there's no gap, then we're going to go ahead and do a final torque at 18 foot-pounds. Alright guys, so our clutch is finally fully installed and everything's torqued and whatnot, so I'm super happy about that. Pretty sure this is a Nissan alignment tool, but it pretty much, you know, fits in there good, so we shouldn't have any issues with the transmission going on and stuff like that. Some of the things I found out are like these sleeves. These sleeves get installed in these bolt holes over here. As like kind of like dowel pins, I guess. So yeah, didn't know that, but now I do, according to the hardware sheet, that these sleeves are going to go in there. And then we've had found pretty much all the bolts, but you know, we'll double check and make sure, because you know there's a couple extra bolts for different model transmissions and stuff like that. If you're using diesel transmission stuff, you may have different bolts or use a different amount of bolts. But we're pretty much going to mate the transmission back to the engine. So I'm super happy about that. I'm really excited to finally be bolting this together for the last time, and it'll be ready to go. There is a couple things we have to do to the transmission. Pretty much this is our new clutch release fork. We installed our new throwout bearing, so you make sure that the little diamond symbols right here are on the sides. I don't know if you can see that, but the little diamond symbol right there go on the sides. And then it just pushes down and clicks in, and we're going to install that. We've already installed our extended pilot bushing pivot that was brass. I showed you that in the last video. We're going to put a dab of grease on that, and then we're going to reinstall it with the original clip, which is right here. This original clip, we're going to use this to reinstall. So yeah, we'll get that put back on, and then we'll get this transmission put back onto the engine for the last time, hopefully, and everything will be ready for a permanent installation into the car. What's up, guys? Alright, so today is the next day. We were installing the clutch and everything on the engine, and we'll get back to that here in 1 second. But first, I just want to show you, I got my AHP welder back, and I've been burning it up. I'm almost halfway through, or over halfway through this first bottle of argon. I've been just practicing all day, so I really haven't gotten anything accomplished, but I mean, my drive shaft ordered, so that's good, but there's some complications. We're probably not drifting because the adapter I need is going to take 5 weeks, and that's not what I was told when I called the company. So either way, whatever, we're still going to press forward and try to get stuff done, but I've been practicing, and I'll just show you my fails because I really suck, but I'm trying to learn. So here's some random stainless tube that I've been practicing on. And obviously I have a lot of issues with heat control. Everybody says turn up the heat and go faster. I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. This one came out pretty decent, and that one came out pretty decent. But the rest are way hot and gray, and I just haven't quite figured it out. Aluminum, I've been doing a little better actually. So I'm pretty happy with the aluminum for my first time doing some runs and stringers and everything like that. So that'll just come with some more practice, but I feel more confident doing aluminum than stainless, which is kind of funny. But let's get started back with where we were. We're pretty much ready to put the transmission on and everything. And so we were talking about, you know, all this hardware and where it goes and everything. So we got our pressure plate torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. So that's done and everything. We're ready to mate the transmission. Now, I have to use the throwout bearing, the original throwout bearing, because the one for the 550i, 335i S does not fit this transmission. Its inner diameter is like 1.6 where we need a 1.5, so it's just too loose. So I'm using the original. It's still smooth and everything, so we're going to send it. I did order one, so if it ends up being noisy, I'll just have to pull it out and replace it. No big deal. I'm just going to keep pressing forward. But yeah, so here you'll see I've installed these two spacers. These are those spacers I was talking about, or these are those spacers I didn't know where they went. So of course, they're basically just dowel pins that go in the transmission. Imagine that. So the one goes there, one goes there, and it's pretty much going to go in this hole and this hole, one of these holes down here. So that's awesome. So now we've installed our brass pin. We've installed our throwout bearing, we greased everything up, we got our dowel pins, we're ready to mate the engine and transmission. So I'm gonna get these made, get a bolt in, and then we'll go through all the bolts that go around the bell housing and everything like that. So give me a second. Alright guys, so here's all our hardware and everything like that. So you have these 4 bolts. There's one missing because it's inside the bell housing holding it to the engine right now. So these longer ones, you have 35mm and I think 45mm. The 45mm ones go up top here to hold the bell housing to the adapter plate. So that's where these two go. So one there and one there. These are the longer of the 4. These short ones go to hold the adapter plate from the engine side. So we'll save those later according to the diagram. And then the rest of these are going to be used in certain places. So where we put one of the sleeves at down here is going to get one of these bolts. That's going to go in there. The other one would go where the other sleeve is, which is right here, but this is not a threaded hole on this setup. So this is for another setup, it would go into one of these holes, but for ours, we're not using it. Then you have these ones here, which are going to go into places like here. One's going to go here. These smaller ones go where the smaller holes are. And basically you just kind of follow suit. If it's a big hole, it gets a big Allen key. If it's a small hole, it gets a small Allen key. So I'm going to go through and I'll get the rest of these bolts in. I will say the diagram they sent me is for the diesel transmission, and it has a different bow housing if I recall. And it gets rotated counterclockwise if we're looking at the rear of the engine right now. It's going to show using a slightly different bolt, so either way you're going to have to adjust for whatever transmission you're using, but this gives you a rough idea. Now I think this is the best setup for me because if you look at the center line of this, it's pretty much centered with the head, whereas before the shifter was tilted to the left. I honestly think when I test fit it, I think I had it rotated one hole to the left and everything, because I remembered using this middle dowel pin here because this is a dowel, and yeah, I was noticing the shifter was a bit off center, so maybe this will fit even a little better. So I'm excited to test fit it again and everything. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get all these bolts tight and everything like that, and we'll be ready to drop this bad boy back in again. Alright guys, so I know this is going to probably end abruptly, but that's going to end this video. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel and everything like that. Stay tuned for further content. I just pretty much ran into some things last night and couldn't really finish anything, but the engine is in the car. So yeah, that's gonna wrap everything up. We got the engine back in, we got all the clutch and everything, transmission installed and everything, and yeah, we're gonna be making our cross member next, so stay tuned. Later!